Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Double Dribble Basketball Show on Brew Sports Net, your home for the NBA Week in Review and a preview of the weekend to come. I'm Mitch Vomhoff, and joining me today is Jimmy Carlton.
Hi. I will be joining you probably most of the time.
Hopefully, listen, this is the preview, or this is the introductory episode, so anything could happen. We could be fist fighting by the end of the show.
Until then,
who's to say? But
esteemed
until
co-host.
then, you are my esteemed co-host, Jimmy. Jimmy, how's it going today? How you doing?
Good. Still have no internet, so this computer is mostly for show.
Live TV, man. It's great.
Don't ask me to Google anything, but I still have plenty of basketball knowledge up here, and I guess that's what we're talking about today. 2001
Eastern Conference Finals, go. Just kidding. You have that in your head. I know.
San Antonio.
All right. So since it is our first show ever, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves a little bit. Jimmy, you grew up in Wisconsin. You followed the Bucks. You know misery. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I lived through all of the 90s, which was not fun.
The entire thing?
Yep. I lived through the entire decade of being a Bucks fan in the 90s. So a lot of Chris Ford, Mike Dunleavy memories, not good ones.
Yes.
Obviously, 2001 was a good year for the Bucks. And,
correct.
And I am now covering the team, which is a little bit of a mind blow because I've been a fan for most of my life. And I covered them for OnMilwaukee.com as a sports writer, sports editor. I've been in sports for 4 or 5 years now.
Go click on it.
Yeah. But not right now. Watch us. And
another tab open. It's fine.
So I sort of ride the rail between fan and reporter
journalist,
and
full-fledged journalist.
I guess that's probably what we're going to be doing with our show, right?
Jimmy
I mean, we're
Carlton.
definitely basketball fans first. Like I know you're very much a cheerleading, sad Bucks fan as well.
If there's one thing I've been accused of in my entire career on the internet, it's cheerleading. So yes, great, excellent.
What
that's
about
awesome.
You?
Journalist in an aspirational life, let's say, but also spent a bunch of time with the ESPN True Hoop Network back in my nascent days, writing for Basketball.com.
Working for the mothership.
The mothership. Pour one out for Basketball.com.
Yeah, definitely.
Man, it's too bad to see, but we still plenty of great Bucks coverage in the state. Go click on Milwaukee. Brew Hoop, those guys are great. Behind the Buck Pass, they're probably still doing stuff, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
There's lots of good basketball out there on the internet. I wish I could access any of it.
Yeah, here's a spoiler alert. Basketball on the internet, doing great. But with that said, obviously your timing is a little bit off. I really wish we could. I should also say we're not just talking about we're going to talk a lot about the Bucks probably because we are
too much about the Bucks for some people, but
too much about the Bucks for me personally, for my own heart. But
this is Brew Sports, and we are in Brewtown.
Sports. We are in Brewtown, but we are not limited to the Bucks. We are also going to talk about the rest of the league. And as much as I wish the timing would have lined up, we are a little bit outside of some of the major events of the last month. So while
February is big in the NBA.
February is very big.
When the rest of the sports world sort of grinds to a stop, February is the NBA's time to shine. Obviously, the trade deadline. Some sad things happen. We'll get into that.
Yes. We'll talk about all things February. And so for this special edition of Double Dribble, we will expand outside of our weekly recap, and we are going to now talk about February in review. The entire month of February, which just happened. It is March 3rd. I should have led with I'm realizing now I should have led the top of the show. March 3rd. But we had an entire month of February, I should say, and more than half of a season now. Jimmy, what happened in February?
Well,
you mentioned there was a trade dedeadline.
Yeah.
We should talk about that, huh?
There was a trade deadline,
right.
and not a lot of trades were made on that deadline. It was pretty quiet, right?
Yes.
I think the trade deadline could probably be epitomized by the move the Bucks made, which was to deal Roy Hibbert for a second-round pick that they're never going to get.
3-time All-Star Roy Hibbert,
who never played. But again, we're not.
The
NBA is more than just the Bucks.
Yes.
There was a lot of deals. Should we start with Boogie Cousins? That was obviously not a trade deadline move, but
he was probably the headline of this whole situation.
Absolutely.
So we could devote a lot of time to talking about the Kings if we really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
But specifically here, the Kings, a lot of people say they kind of got taken for a ride. Boogie Cousins, obviously an extremely talented big man, maybe one of the top centers in the league.
Yeah.
got traded for what some would say a pittance, not even an unprotected first-round pick.
Yeah,
a bag of balls, and but maybe the next Steph Curry in Buddy Hield.
Right. What do you think of that trade? I mean, what do we think? Does it make the Pelicans contenders to be able to pair DeMarcus Cousins with Anthony Davis now?
I had that pause because I was really trying to think of
the Kings have that effect
right
on
now
people.
if I like that pick or not. Because yes, when you look at it on paper, you match up Boogie Cousins, who might be the top center in the league, with Anthony Davis in New Orleans, who is another one of the top. He's not generally a center.
Yeah, he gets
plays
to sort
a
of
lot
go
of power
to
forward.
the spot he says he likes to play.
They're trying
right?
to avoid putting him at center for some reasons. That should be one of the dominant pairings in the league, if you look at it. And at the time, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, the Pelicans can totally make this run now to at least the 8th seed in the West, where there's some unevenness, uncertainty in the West. They could kind of shoot through that." But since that pairing came together, I know I was very intent on watching their game against the Rockets, that first game after Boogie came over. Mm-hmm. And he played great. He had a great line that game, but they lost. And, in fact, every game that Boogie played this season for the Pelicans, which is, granted, he's played in 3 games, but they've lost 3 games.
And the one game he didn't play, they won, right?
We will get to
we will dive
Boogie Cousins' suspensions in a minute. But, and part of it kind of epitomizes the way the league has gone. It's especially if I can go back to that matchup with the Rockets, it really epitomizes kind of the new direction of the league versus the old direction of the league, where you have the Twin Towers in New Orleans.
Right.
Kind of these, if you put 2 dominant big men together, you'd think, well, you can control the paint, you can grind out the other team. But then you look at them playing against a team like the Rockets that is just geared up to shoot 53s a game, so says Daryl Morey. And the Rockets just kind of ran him out of the gym.
Well, we talked about this last night, the last time that you and I got together to drink beers, which was last night to prepare for the show. As everyone who's watching can tell, we did a lot of preparation. And it was, watching that game was kind of like watching 1997 basketball against 2017 basketball. And you got these 2 guys, these sort of not those 2 are old-fashioned, sit in the paint and back guys down, big men, but they are definitely of a different era where you want to have that Spurs style, or the 2 guys down low that can sort of anchor your post against the Rockets, who just play this beautiful rhythmic ball movement and, like you said, jack up 53s a game style that is totally in vogue, absolutely the efficient, effective, exciting way to play basketball in the NBA right now. And so it'd be interesting. I don't know if we obviously don't know if it's going to work out. They have a ways to go to. I mean, they're not even in the playoffs right now, right? Are they?
Correct.
They're outside the 8th seed, and with a couple other teams, Denver, who likes to beat up on our Bucks. And it doesn't. It's surprising because I think a lot of people thought, they're pretty far outside, but this move puts them into the playoffs. And can they even give somebody a little bit of a scare in the first round? Can they get to 8, 7, maybe even a 6th seed? And now it's this move might not even get them into the playoffs. And Cousins has an option, right?
Yes.
Or he's up for an extension, and it's not even guaranteed. If he doesn't do well, if the team doesn't show any ability to sort of have this pairing, have this fit work, is he going to stay in New Orleans? We don't know. So that was obviously the biggest trade that would happen before the deadline.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then there were some other trades that happened. I know you were high on Lou Williams.
Yeah,
that move.
If I can just triple down, going back to that Rockets game that I watched.
Yeah. The one NBA game you've seen this season, I think.
Yeah. It's, I'm the dude on Twitter where you always say, watch the games.
Yeah.
But no, watching Lou Williams fit in with the Rockets actually made me feel like he might be the most impactful acquisition this year in terms of a team that is ostensibly a contender in the Houston Rockets that's doing really well, 3rd in the West, trying to gear up for a run at the Warriors. But to watch Lou Williams, who is a gunner through and through, dude who's just going to shoot, fit in with Eric Gordon and James Harden.
Match made in heaven,
and
seems like.
Ryan Anderson, just the bombers in Houston. He really elevated, and especially in that game that I watched, in his first game, he he really elevated that whole system they worked in when he was on the floor. And that to me said, no, this guy like is going to make a splash. And when you get down to it in the playoffs, when you need guys to get hot, you want to have as many guys that can get hot as possible. Because who knows when a Game 6 is going to be decided by Lou Williams just making 5 threes.
Right. The Lou Williams trade was interesting to me because I think for a long time in all of sports at trade deadlines when deals are made, but especially in the NBA, you were always trying to find that piece that sort of that plugged into a hole that you didn't have, something, a piece you were missing, give you something that you lacked and weren't doing well and could sort of bring that particular area up to everything else that you were doing well. It's not really what a lot of these deals that were made at the deadline and what sort of the NBA is going toward now, which is just like you want to stockpile shooting. Like the Rockets, the rich got richer. I mean, right? The Rockets are already the best three-point shooting team in the NBA. They already epitomize how the game is played and do it. They beat you over the head with it. And then they add a guy who they definitely didn't quote unquote need, but it's another guy. I mean, basically, you want all the guys on the floor to be able to hit threes, ideally. Yes. And that's what they did. They added another guy who can go out and take 8 threes and make 3 or 4 of them. And so I think that's an interesting direction. I mean, and like a lot of the, at the deadline there was a lot of centers moved, and centers aren't really important anymore, right? Like,
correct.
On sort of on a base level, they're obviously still important, but. Yeah. There was a huge supply of these guys that nobody really values that highly anymore, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why so many of them moved.
Yeah.
So a couple of the other guys
that have them for very little.
Yeah. So a couple of those deals. And let's talk about a few of the ones that were made. Nerlens Noel going to Dallas.
Yeah, that was one I was going to bring up.
Again, for like you said, not for much, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Generally, and that's something that Brian Colangelo in Philly was catching some heat for, trading away. Maybe they're more promising young center.
The wrong guy and then getting less than you expect, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as you said, that definitely speaks to how centers are valued in the league. You're seeing a ton of people getting success with the small ball, running power forwards out there at center, anybody you can shoot, making sure, like you said, everyone on the floor can shoot. Mm-hmm. And, we briefly brought up, like, Roy Hibbert a couple minutes ago where that guy was a multiple-time All-Star, linchpin of an Eastern Conference Finals team that almost took down LeBron.
Completely irrelevant now. Absolutely.
And now literally traded, not played, and then traded again for a pick that the Bucks are probably not going to get because it's top 55 protected, second rounder, just basically irrelevant. Yeah.
So Nerlens, who I really like. I think that is if you're gonna be as we've said in this NBA where everybody has to be able to hit threes and you can't hit threes and you're a center, you better be able to do the other two things that are extremely high valued right now, which is defend, protect the rim, and block, and rebound. And he's still like an athletic freak. Mm-hmm. He's defense first guy. He buys in on that end. He's gonna be. I think he's a really, really important piece. And they got him for Justin Anderson, Andrew Bogut, and a protected first round pick. So and Bogut's basically he's already been bought out. Like he's gone. Mm-hmm. Justin Anderson. Okay,
has promise,
right.
as a 3-and-D guy, but
hasn't shown the first round pick, ability that he had. Mm-hmm. I mean, that he was a first round pick last year. All right.
Yes.
Yeah, and then the protected first round pick obviously is that's fine, but it's not the best value.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's we will definitely pivot into talking about Philly in a minute.
Yeah. Nothing like talking about the Philadelphia 76ers on an NBA show. We got to hit them first and foremost.
I get the feeling that we are going to be talking about some very bad basketball.
Okay, so the Suns you mentioned earlier, and they made a couple moves, right? They made a move, PJ Tucker to Toronto. Mm-hmm. I guess Toronto made a couple moves.
Bringing in
correct. PJ Tucker, and then the one that I think you're particularly high on, which is getting Serge Ibaka.
Yeah, Serge Ibaka. Yeah, and Ibaka's a guy that I've loved. I loved him on my fantasy basketball team a couple years ago because blocks and threes are amazing for that. But I also, his whole time in Oklahoma City, he just kind of felt like the guy that epitomized a lot of the move of the league to this. Like, you want guys that can shoot threes, and if they're great defenders, that's that's a total bonus. And Ibaka was always a 6'10" lockdown defender who also would shot in the high 30s from three for a while. And so for Toronto, that's obviously they're another one of those teams that's gearing up to try to take down a Titan at the top of their conference.
Yeah, and so that makes me wonder, have they done enough? Like, is bringing in Serge Ibaka, who's a very good player, totally just like left on an island, shipwrecked, marooned in Orlando.
Yes.
And now is in Toronto with PJ Tucker. Is that going to scare the Cavaliers? Obviously, Toronto also lost Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
I know we're going to talk about that later, but take away the fact that Lowry's hurt, and let's go back to this deal that was made just before the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Are those moves that would actually scare the Cavaliers? Would that have positioned the Raptors as a team that can actually challenge Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals?
They definitely made those moves with challenging Cleveland in mind. I mean, PJ Tucker's one of the guys that everyone's kind of has pointed to as like, oh, here's one of the guys that can stem the tide against LeBron because he's a physical defender. He really gets in there. So they definitely did that. I obviously, with the timing of what happened afterwards, it's still going to be hard to see if they get Lowry back and reintegrated in time for the playoffs. They're in a better place than they had been, and it might not be enough reinforcement to get over the hump, but it is definitely doing what you got to do to take advantage of the moment you have. And so.
Okay, that brings us to a team that didn't make a move that definitely could have in terms of challengers to the Cavaliers, which was the Celtics. I mean, I think a lot of people thought Boston was going to make a move, whether it was going to be for Jimmy Butler was being rumored, Carmelo Anthony. There was a little bit of rumblings there. They have that Brooklyn Nets pick, which it could be a top pick, but
it's definitely trade bait.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people thought there was going to be a move there. But there wasn't. I mean, nothing ever came from it. Do you think that they should have? Was that a team that needed to add a piece? Celtics for me are always like this team that's like, whether it's Brad Stevens style or whether it's just sort of the guys that they have. It seems like more of like your Hoosiers type, right? Like they're successful because of their chemistry, their sort of their defense and hustle attitude. This like gritty, scrappy type of team.
Yeah.
Would adding a quote-unquote superstar type like an Anthony or Jimmy Butler have taken them over the top, or does that sort of mess with what you've been building there?
A lot, obviously there was a lot of disappointment around them standing pat, and I think they're in a situation where Aaron loves Jimmy Butler, so obviously a guy like that would be probably the piece that puts them over the top. Maybe not as a favorite, but at least as a contender. But even standing pat, the Celtics are in a really good place. And,
they just beat Cleveland.
You could argue about the value of the assets they do have and whether that's going to go up or down and when is the optimal time to make a move.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, and this is always my philosophy on trades, is that if the deal you want isn't there, you don't have to make a deal just to make a deal. And obviously there were some guys here at the deadline, Jimmy Butler, Carmelo, that were widely reported as available. But if the asking price is too much, if the Bulls are really doubling down, which they should for a guy like Jimmy Butler, because anytime you have a superstar on your team, maybe the worst mistake you can make is giving him away for too little. See Cousins, Brooklyn,
right, and it always seems to happen
Sacramento,
that way too.
Kings.
Teams always seem to hold on to a guy a little too long or get a little less than they should.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so we're Bucks fans, obviously. We've mentioned that a couple times. We are anti-Bulls fans, and Chicago.
That's how the diagram works. They're polar opposites.
Yeah, you can't be in the Venn diagram of both. So they made a move that was dumb. Right? Like.
Well,
I don't understand what Chicago's doing. Like they traded Doug McDermott, Taj Gibson, and the second round pick for Cameron Payne, Anthony Morrow, and Joffrey Laverne. Basically, that almost seems to me to be exemplify what you just said. Teams shouldn't do and don't do, which is to make a trade for the sake of making a trade. Like they couldn't deal Butler. Obviously, the right thing didn't come along. They couldn't get enough of what they thought he was worth, and fair enough. And so then they make this sort of auxiliary secondary deal, which is to deal one of the Taj Gibson, probably one of the locker room leaders, Doug McDermott, a guy that isn't necessarily as good as they were hoping and hasn't taken the next step, but is still a guy that can shoot. For three bench dudes, so the 3 Thunder bench dudes, right? Like,
yeah, and by all accounts, the Bulls are pretty high on campaign,
right?
And
he's got the highest upside of that
he could
in that
be
deal.
Their point guard of the future, and so that's kind of counterbalanced by giving away a guy, not giving away, but moving a guy like Doug McDermott, who was showing some flashes this year, and like maybe going to be one of those shooters like a Mirotic type that they have, but didn't really fulfill his promise.
They're rebuilding without saying they're rebuilding, right? I mean, it's sort of that classic, sports franchise that doesn't want to admit that it's, especially in a town like Chicago, where they're used to success, just to sort of be open and transparent and say, we suck. We did this wrong. We put a bunch of pieces together that don't work with Rondo and Wade, and they don't fit with Jimmy Butler. And instead of just being like, owning it and starting from scratch, which they did like a decade ago, and eventually it worked out, they're sort of trying to, limp along and be both competitive, but also knowing that they aren't going to have a legitimate shot at contending.
Yeah, definitely. And while we're on the topic of the Bucks, Ian in the comments asks, could you explain to me why the Bucks have 5 point guards on their roster?
Because none of them are very good. So
okay, yeah, that's valid.
I mean,
that's
it's like
valid.
in the NFL. If you have 2 quarterbacks or 3 quarterbacks, you don't have any quarterbacks, right?
Yes, precisely.
Yeah, I mean, you and I both really like Malcolm Brogdon, the president.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll be talking about him later and probably often. But right, I mean, it's a very unconventional group. You say that was Ian who asked that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's a good question, but when you're 6'11", star, completely unconventional Greek freak forward is your point guard on offense, you have to do different things. And I don't think having a prototype conventional point guard would really necessarily help the Bucks much. That's not the spot they need. Giannis takes care of that on offense, and they basically just need a guy that can match up with the one on defense.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, with our surprisingly extensive trade opinions completed.
We didn't even get to Bojan Bogdanović.
Oh, man,
That's
I
okay.
want to talk about Bojan so much.
That's okay.
But you mentioned Malcolm
spilled.
Brogdon just now, and that reminded me of a very controversial discussion that is happening this week in the NBA regarding rookies of the year.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, obviously, Joel Embiid, the next Hakeem Olajuwon, the savior of the 76ers.
Sure, right. The best dude to follow on Instagram ever.
Best Instagram follow. Is he still, as an aside, is he still going after Rihanna? Is he still trying to get a date with Rihanna?
I think so. I mean, you miss all the shots you don't take.
Yeah,
he also
exactly.
is still calling places like Milwaukee s-holes. And taking pot shots at the Bradley Center. Like, come on, man, we're trying to build and own the future here with the arena next door, right?
To be fair, there is a rich tradition of opponents calling Milwaukee all sorts of terrible names,
right.
So that's fine. But
I don't know if you can throw stones when you live in a Philadelphia house, though.
Yeah, well, we've all got our
Fair
shortcomings of our cities. So I'm not interested. Don't send me your hate mail about my city, your city. Not going to read it. But Joel Embiid, Rookie of the Year frontrunner easily, even though he was on a super restrictive minutes limit this year.
Is that your opinion, or is that sort of the narrative?
I mean, it was definitely my opinion.
Okay.
As well as the narrative. But I didn't get... No. I'm not a frontrunner, dang it.
Well, no, I'm curious because I honestly wonder, I think that obviously he is statistically, everyone knows, he is far and away the best player in, it's not really his rookie class, but his rookie year during a season when there's nobody else that's doing
classified
it.
as a rookie in the 2016-2017 NBA season.
But I just don't think that you can give an award to a guy that's going to have played 20% of the total season's minutes. I mean, he's played 31 games. He's already been shut down for the rest of the year. And before that, he was on that minutes restriction, which is part of the reason why his per 36 numbers are insanely good.
Oh, yeah.
He's also a very, very good basketball player. I get the argument of you can give it to the best player, and especially during this weak diluted rookie class where we're talking about guys like Malcolm Brogdon as real strong contenders.
There, yes.
I just don't think even given that argument, if you don't play enough games, you don't have real value. If you're not on the court, how have you been impacted the league and helped your team? I don't get that.
Yeah. And, there's obviously a very extensive conversation to be had about what does of the year mean. Some people argue about what rookie means.
I would argue is a key word there.
Yes, definitely. But my opinion was always that I would excuse the minutes restrictions if he was completing a full season. If he gets to, let's say, somewhere between 45 and 50 games.
Yeah, so you're saying over half, right?
Yeah, over half of a season, even on 20 minutes a night. If Joel Embiid carries his production through an entire season like that, it just becomes overwhelming to me. The quality of his play, even if he's playing for a bad team, and you could argue how much that kind of gets into the most valuable player, like define value, define adding to a team discussion. But for me, rookie of the year has always kind of been most outstanding, and even like 2/3 of a season from Joel Embiid this year would be more outstanding to me than anything else.
But he's not going to get close to that. So,
but now,
what do you think?
The discussion is if he played 31 games, 31 games in a season. Is that enough? Is that outstanding enough?
And I don't think it is. Like I think that's the conversation a lot of people are having in the NBA, which is, what would have been enough? We don't know. He hasn't gotten to the point where I don't think he's gotten to that point where you can even have the argument of like, well, is 40 games enough? That's almost half, or is 35. If he didn't have a minutes restriction, then maybe he would have played 25, 30% of the minutes of the total season. I just don't think. I think it's irrelevant because he didn't get there. He didn't get to whatever would be considered, mildly approaching a close enough amount of time on the court. Even though it's one season, it's rookie of the year. I still think there's a body of work that has to be taken into account. Like, we're not talking about this isn't an award for the most likely to become a superstar, or like the most endorsements attained in the next 3 years, or whatever, or best Instagram follow. But it's what did you do during your rookie season on the court? And I don't think he's done enough.
Yeah, no,
and his team sucks. Like, it's just his personal production wasn't there, and the team was a fart. Like I don't think that the conversation ever. I don't think that he created enough of the. I don't think he did enough to warrant the conversation. I think it's either his teammate Dario Saric. I think Malcolm Brogdon. And personally, I really like Brogdon. I think especially now that he's moved into the starting lineup and has a minutes increase with the Bucks, like he's going to be getting a lot more time. And the knock on him is just statistically, like you said, those usually it's a most outstanding player. Who scored the most points per game? Okay, that guy's the rookie of the year. Well, Malcolm Brogdon's not going to be that because most of the year he wasn't. He didn't have a big role.
And he's not.
And that's not his way, anyways.
Player on the team that he's on.
Right. But he's
scoring at least.
He's going to end up playing a lot more. He's been playing 30, 35 minutes, and he's been scoring 15 points, 4 or 5 assists a game since his role expanded. Like if that's the guy that going forward, you're going to be voting for that player, not the guy that didn't have as much of a role before.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm willing to excuse the bad team thing because so many rookies of the year just end up being on bad teams because of the nature of the thing. But 31 games for Embiid, probably not enough to say this man deserves rookie of the year. Yeah. So I definitely agree with the Saric or Malcolm Brogdon. By the way, shout out to everyone in the comments holding down for Milwaukee. Shout out everyone who loves Milwaukee. Right. I love Milwaukee.
We know our listenership. We intend to grow, but we know for now it's very Milwaukee centric.
And we're going to play to it. All right.
So I know we were doing a little bit of a February recap, and we won't do that every week, but there was quite a few injuries that happened in February.
Yeah, and that's we don't want to bring mood down too much. Obviously,
it was not a good month for knees.
Knees. Sell knees this season. It's not happening, you guys. Joel Embiid, obviously, maybe the headliner of the knee club.
Well, I wrote them down here. So these are all the knees that we lost this past month. Cue like the Oscars in memoriam, sad music. Hopefully we don't accidentally get the wrong name or the wrong whatever like they did.
They handed me the wrong envelope.
Kevin Love, knee.
Yes.
Kevin Durant, knee. Jabari Parker, knee. Joakim Noah, who's not really good anymore, but whatever.
But still,
knee,
a name
February.
that people recognize.
Ben Simmons was already injured, knee, got shut down, not coming back. Joel Embiid, knee. And then you got a couple ankles, Zach LaVine, and as well as Dragon Bender's knee or ankle, but I'm going to call those knees because it's still your leg.
Because that fits the narrative.
Yeah.
LaVine actually was an ACL, by the way.
Sorry?
LaVine.
Oh, yeah,
ACL.
okay.
So,
All right, that's
what I
meant.
That knee can be an actual knee.
That's alternative facts. Ankle, knee. It's all part of your leg.
Yes, great. Okay, good. I like this bent.
So that was sad. I mean,
yes.
a lot of those guys are not
always tragic.
Yeah, and those are just
get
big
injured,
names.
we're
I mean,
not.
obviously, other players got hurt and other players had other injuries, but those are some huge names with that are integral players who are going to have impacts on their team in the playoff race. And just as basketball fans, like losing Kevin Durant, losing Joel Embiid, losing Kevin Love, those are fun guys to watch and cheer for, and like they make the NBA better. And of course, I mean, I know. Shout out to Milwaukee on Facebook, and we appreciate
Holding it down, guys. Let's go.
Bucks fans listening and watching. But the saddest one, of course, Jabari Parker, which I think was possibly the most mega downer that Bucks fans have felt in a really long time, and that's saying a lot.
Since at least Jabari tore his ACL the first time.
Well, but this time it was like I think it's way more, right? Because like he came back so much better. So much stronger, so much more explosive, athletic, bouncy, like fun, just productive. He was becoming that guy, he was that 20-point per game scorer. He was that second star. And even though the analytics would say the fit with Giannis wasn't necessarily ideal, wasn't. I mean, are we already talking about Jabari in past tense? I'm already talking about him in past tense.
I mean, you just did, but I'm not.
But yeah, I mean, I think that was certainly the most down I've been as a Bucks fan. Bucks Twitter that day basically died.
Yeah.
And
so it was some bad business.
I don't know how much you want to talk about this. If it's just going to bum you out, but do you think he's going to? Is there any chance that a guy with two ACL tears in the same knee within 3 years? I know he's young, comes back and resembles what he was going to be or what he was becoming.
I think that's really tough. I mean, I did some cursory searching after that, obviously to see, and there is not there's not a whole list of players that have really done that.
There's two that have ever done that.
But there also aren't any that came back and were like, oh yeah, no, that guy's the same afterwards. So, I think you are going to kind of have to brace for Jabari Parker, or maybe not.
Well, there's two that have done it, and I know we're going to move on from this because we don't want to talk about Jabari Parker forever and it makes everybody upset. But, and he's the youngest guy that's had two ACL injuries in the same knee. One of them, though, was, as Bucks fans will remember, Michael Redd, and essentially after his second ACL tear, he was out of the league within a year. So, sad times, and let's just drink a lot of beers.
Pouring out
for Jabari's knees.
Pouring out for Jabari's knees as soon as we figure out how to give him my ACLs, which are not perfect.
Actually, let's both go on the record. You're welcome to have any of the ligaments or cartilage, whatever you need.
My basketball career ended a long time ago, so
your knees are good. They're fresh then.
Yeah, well, genetics are not my strong suit, but they are in decent condition. So
that's February in review.
That is February in review. Now I would like to move on to a segment, a little bit of a quick hitter. This is a segment we're going to call Make or Miss. And we are going to run down some topics.
Sure.
And see if it is a make or a miss.
Kind of like a buy or sell.
Yeah.
Hot or not.
If you like some real trending topics, this will be for you. So I'm going to start out for you, Jimmy. Lonzo Ball, obviously
he's a good player.
Very highly rated prospect, probably one of the first two to go in the draft this coming year.
He's good at hoops.
He is very good at hoops, as it turns out. But he also has a father,
yes,
LeVar,
that's a problem.
Who likes to run his kids' lives. And not just Lonzo's. He also has two other brothers who are very good basketball prospects as well.
I knew the brothers are also very good and up and coming and highly recruited. Is he also co-opting their lives too? Running their lives?
LeVar is very influential in his children's lives, making sure that they stayed in L.A., that Lonzo got to UCLA, and also that all three of them are already committed to play at UCLA. Lonzo already there, but his brother is also already committed to play at UCLA, even though they are in high school yet.
So what's the make or miss here?
The make or miss is what LeVar Ball scripting his kids' basketball futures, even to say, my son will play for the Lakers.
Yes.
Is this harmful for Lonzo or his brothers, or do you think they're good enough that they can?
Is it a make
this?
or a miss?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a miss as in terms of like this is always bad PR. This always looks bad. Whether it's Serena Williams' dad, whether it's anytime you sort of like are trying to live vicariously through your kid and control them like joystick style, it looks really bad. But I'm going to go a little unconventional and say it's actually a make though because there's a reason that those kids are as good as they are and all basically going to be they're all basketball phenoms, and Lonzo Ball is going to be an NBA star and a millionaire very soon. So there's a reason that they get to that, and whether that's his genes, whether that's his like dogged over dadding. Whatever he's doing, it's working in terms of it's gotten to them to this point. So I think it's obnoxious. I think it's I wouldn't do it if it was my kid, but at the same time, like he's not sitting on the couch drinking a beer, being like, oh my kid's pretty good at hoops. This is exciting. I actually had a real quick tangential related
All right, go on.
Lonzo Ball /dad thing, which was, I think I told you this yesterday. My dad was watching the end of the Marquette Xavier game, and he called me up. And he goes, because the next game after word on Fox Sports was UCLA a couple nights ago, and he goes, "Have you heard about this Lonzo Ball kid? He's pretty good." And I'm like, "Yes."
No, Dad.
I have
no idea.
I have read the internet, and I somewhat follow basketball. But anyway, so that's my Lonzo Ball.
All right. So. I'm generally in agreement. If I was involved, it would be very much a miss because that's the kind of parental meddling that.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I didn't experience, and also like I just rubbed me the wrong way.
But if you had, maybe you'd be an NBA superstar.
Don't tell my
college
dad that.
basketball superstar.
He's already.
All right, I got one for you. Make or miss.
All right,
Russell Westbrook. Perhaps you've heard of him.
Russell Westbrook.
Yes.
He is a basketball player.
Yes,
basketball player.
Not Russell Wilson. Is he going to average a triple-double for the season?
So I watched Russell Westbrook play against the Portland Trailblazers last night, and before I watched Russell Westbrook play against the Trailblazers last night, I would have said he can't keep this up. It's crazy.
Right,
it's
which
insane.
is what we've been saying since November, essentially.
Granted, people have been saying that since November.
No, I'm with you.
At the end of the first half last night, I watched him score 9 points in what seemed like about 15 seconds. And from that moment, I was like, nope. Russell Westbrook can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Russell Westbrook averaging a triple-double is a make.
Okay.
He's still doing it right now. 31, 10, and 10 on the season.
Yeah. And yet we're still having conversations about whether he's an MVP.
He still has the free reign. He can do what he wants, and what he wants is a triple-double for the season, and I think he's going to get it.
And he's actually averaging a quadruple-double if you take into account how awesome his Mountain Dew Kickstart commercials are, which are the highlight of television.
Yes. What was the Kanye? He's not averaging a Kanye triple double, which is triple double no assists. But I don't think Kanye included commercials in his. So
right.
we're getting pretty close to a quadruple double there.
Yeah.
All right, your turn. Steph Curry and Klay Thompson over the last 3 games since Kevin Durant got hurt, shooting 17% from three.
Yeah.
Is this a troubling sign, or is this just a blip for the Warriors?
It's definitely troubling. I mean, they lost the guy that was the alpha dog, the biggest star of the 4 stars of their big 4, goes down, and it's an immediate impact that whether it's a spacing thing, whether they've got more guys on them. Obviously, this is a team that won 73 games last year. Like they're going to be okay. We'll talk later about whether we think they're going to be in stay on top of the conference. But so whether it's a spacing issue because Durant's not out there and other teams can key on them, whether it's a confidence thing, whatever the reason is, whatever the background is, it's having a noticeable, legitimate impact. Because what was Curry like 2 for 20 or 3 for 20 or something like that?
It was bad. It was
like you said, they're 17% together. Like shooting is definitely one of those things, comes and goes. You guys get hot. Those are 2 of the best. I mean, if not the best in the league. So they're usually immune to those kind of slumps, but. It's having an impact because we can see in terms of percentages and because of how math works, we know that since Kevin Durant went down, they've been bad.
Yes, yeah. I generally think that talent rises and they're gonna figure it out, but the way the West is shaping up, Golden State really needs to adjust fast and get back on top of their game if they want to hang on to that 1 seed, which is their clear shot to the finals.
All right, I'm going to skip one, and we can come back to it because we've already talked a lot about Joel Embiid. But I'm going to go to Young Kings because I also know you like talking about the Kings.
Oh, I love talking about beautiful messes, and the Kings might be the beautifulest and the messiest.
They are. Yes, exactly.
But
are they for real? Make or miss?
this is also why I never say, like, oh, I could be a GM, because I'm an idiot. Because I thought, like, Buddy Hield was, like, not...
Yeah, he didn't
not
seem,
very good
he
in
didn't
New
seem to be very
Orleans.
good.
Like, you know, obviously a high pick guy. People had some concerns with coming out of the draft because he was older. Kind of came on in his final year in college, and then
We knew he could shoot. We didn't know he could do anything else.
exactly. But since he has come over to Sacramento, he's looked much more like an actual NBA player. And I hate to think that, you know, whatever. Vivek might have actually hit on a guy in a way that I didn't think.
Yeah, they might have
would
accidentally
happened.
stumbled into a decent move.
But also, a couple of guys, at least one guy that I liked when he came out was, Scala Basseri. I slaughtered that name. I'm sorry, dude. I apologize for that. Has come on in a way that I am intrigued by, because I'm often intrigued by toolsy prospects, let's say. I like high jumps. I like guys with long wingspans.
Yeah. Measurements guy.
I'm a big fan of measurements. So Scala coming out and playing well in the last couple games is a nice surprise. Willie Cauley-Stein
that's who
is
I thought
a
you were
guy
gonna
that
mention, right.
I really liked coming out of Kentucky.
Interesting.
Another
people
tools
did
guy.
not, or at least a lot of people didn't like that pick, right? It seemed to be way too early when the Kings took him. But you like that.
Yeah.
Pick. You like that player.
Yeah, I definitely liked him because, you know, he was very much in the Nerlens Noel school of a great defender,
Defense
tall
first,
guy,
loves to
lanky
defend,
dude. He will dunk on everything if you let him. And while I think Boogie Cousins is definitely, you know, obviously a singular talent and a guy that you want to generally have on your team, moving him really opened up a lot for the Kings' young dudes, and they are starting to come out a little bit and perform on their own. And so I would say that the young Kings, I'm going to say as a make, they are for real, and they might have very well have stumbled into a couple of cornerstones that they can start to build the next generation of Kings around.
Yeah, real quick to jump on that, I think it's really interesting what's happening there right now, because, you know, this is almost like, this could be that prototype, like that prototypical addition by subtraction. Like, you know, you deal Boogie Cousins, who was not the best guy for on a team level for them, obviously extremely talented, and then you lose Rudy Gay. So basically their best two players are gone, and they found something, whether it's chemistry, whether it's just sort of other guys getting a chance to shine and roles expanding. Like they've got something there, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah,
it might be bad. It might be a beautiful mess.
It's promising, and that's, you know, at some point
it's a mess, and it might be
in
beautiful.
that situation. That's kind of what you want to hope for. All right, we got two more. Jimmy, speaking of franchises that are questionably run, the Knicks are back to running the triangle as Phil Jackson really exhorted them in the beginning of the season. Some players maybe have not been super excited about it, but they are going back to it. Do you think the triangle can work in the modern NBA?
No, I mean, no. Like Phil Jackson is, you know, he's a great coach. He hasn't proven to be a very good, you know, personnel guy, president. Both in terms of basketball moves and in terms of like personal relationships with people. Anyways, he, you know, Derrick Rose had a great quote today in a story today that was, you know, he was asked like about running the triangle again. He's like, well, do I have a choice? I mean, these guys are prisoners of this system that was like extremely perfectly fitted for the mid-90s Chicago's Bulls, both in terms of the way the game was played back then, and also because you had three guys, you know, at least two guys, and then whoever was down low with Jordan Pippen and whoever they wanted to run down low with it. But no, it's outdated, it's outmoded, it's not how the game is being played right now, and, you know, they can be unconventional and sort of try to, like, you know, be different and be like a matchup quirk for teams by doing it, but I don't think it's going to work. Like, it's not how the entire rest of the game and all the teams that are successful are playing.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
But I'm happy that they're doing it because it's fun to watch.
It's an interesting development at the very least, even if
I actually thought the Bucks would have been a good candidate to try to run the triangle last year when they had with Middleton, Parker, and Giannis, but we don't have to get into that.
Yeah,
makes me sad again.
Come together like that.
All right, and then one of our favorite recurring characters on the show, Boogie Cousins. So can he quit with the technicals or not?
You know, Boogie seems like a really good fit in New Orleans. We saw a really great video from Mardi Gras of him.
He likes beads.
Oh, he loves.
And he
beads.
loves girls' underwear.
So I do like the fit of Boogie in New Orleans, and, you know, obviously he built himself into a hole a little bit with his situation in Sacramento, where he's obviously having some issues and got a lot of technicals there, it was the earliest we ever got a technical suspension in the history of technical suspensions, when he got suspended before March started. And obviously he had another one where he was then suspended for the game this last Wednesday for the Pelicans. Boogie's always struck me as a guy who, if things are going okay, won't be a problem. But if things go south, that's when you have to worry about it. And so, coupled with the Pelicans kind of struggling since he's come along, obviously they could figure some things out. But I'm going to miss Boogie. I'm going to miss Boogie for all the games he's not playing when he gets suspended for technicals, because the Pelicans have to figure some things out.
Yeah. All right, we got our weekly winner and our weekly loser. For me, this week, that is the Boston Celtics are the winner. They beat the Cavs last night. They despite, as we mentioned, they didn't make a big trade. They seem to be the team that is perhaps best equipped to challenge the Cavs. And it's basically a race for second in the East, obviously. But I think that was a confidence boost for them last night, even though Cleveland doesn't have Kevin Love, and maybe it doesn't matter because they're punch their ticket for the finals every year. Every team LeBron's on. But I think that was a huge win for them. And your loser at Golden State Warriors, as we mentioned before. I mean, they have now lost two games in a row for the first time since April of 2015. So two losses in a row for the first time in 2 years, and they don't have their best player right now. So
yeah, definitely. And we did not plan this, but we do share a loser, because I also said that the Golden State Warriors are probably your loser for the week, given the piece they lost is so important. But my winner, then by contrast, is the San Antonio Spurs, who are all of a sudden within striking range of that number 1 overall seed in the West. If things don't quite go the Warriors' way,
I suppose
the Spurs the undead Spurs,
the boring, old, dumb, boring, stupid
continue
Spurs
to jump in, and they might all of a sudden have a really intriguing road to the finals when the playoffs start. Well, with that, it looks like it's about time for us to wrap up. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in tonight in the inaugural edition of Double Dribble on the Brew Sports Net. We do have a contact address. If you have questions, comments, anything you'd like us to address on the show, you can reach us at doubledribbleshow@gmail.com. And we will be back at you next week with some more insights from around the NBA.
Never thought we'd talk about the Kings so much.
We'll get to something better at some point, but...
Yep. Thanks. This is fun.
Thanks, Jimmy. It's been great talking with you.